Okay, so before we talk about natural selection, we're going to talk about variation. So a variation is a difference between individuals of the same species. So variation. Okay, so for example, I like to think about a simple example would be the flavors of ice cream. So if you go and buy ice cream, you go to Baskin-Robbins, you go and look at all the ice creams. So although they're all ice cream, they're all the same, I guess, species of ice cream, you could say, they each have different flavors. So a variation is kind of like a flavor. It's a difference in a trait. So in animals, variations can come in variations of color, maybe variations in size of maybe a tail, maybe some lizards, for example, species of lizards, they could have shorter tail or longer tail. It's still a lizard, but it has a different variation of tail length. Or the length of beak. For example, we talked about the finches that Darwin observed. They have different lengths and sizes of beaks. So those are some examples of variations. Okay, so here is some tigers, and they have a variation of color. So here's the original. When we think of a tiger, we think of this orange tiger. It's orange with some black stripes and some white. And here's a little lighter one, and here's a white tiger. And this one is most likely an albino tiger. It's all white, it looks like. So that's a variation in color in tigers. Okay, and so these variations are due to genetic changes which result from mutations or recombination. So variation is a result of a mutation. So it's very important to know. So mutations cause variation in species. Okay. Next I have here this image. So this is a variation in color. So we can see these are like leaf bugs, that's what they're called. And here's a green one. So they look very similar to leaves. So if you saw this bug in a tree, you probably couldn't tell it wasn't a leaf. You would just say it looks like all the other leaves. So this is a variation of color. So there's a green one, and a yellow one, and a brown leaf bug. Okay, so here's some green. Okay, so as I mentioned, so here's some green leaves in a tree. So which of these bugs would survive longer in these green trees, among these green leaves, if there was a predator, like a bird, for example, looking to eat them? So if you look at these ones here, so which one of these three would you think would survive longer in this tree? Good. This green one here would probably survive longer because he would hide better. Kind of like a camouflage. He would hide better among the leaves than maybe this brown one or this yellow one. So that's an example of variation. Okay, so there's different types of variation. So here's our leaf bugs again. So there's favorable variations. So a favorable variation improves an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in its environment. So favorable improves an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in its environment. Okay, whereas an unfavorable variation is a variation of a trait that's harmful to the survival of an organism. So for example, in this case, if these leaf bugs lived in these trees here, a favorable variation would be the green color, whereas an unfavorable variation would maybe be the yellow color or the brown color. So if there was a yellow leaf bug in here, the birds would automatically go to the yellow one because they're easier to see among these green leaves. So that's favorable and unfavorable. Okay, so types of variation. So there's physical variations, which are like variations in color, so that's kind of what we've been talking about here. with these leaf bugs. Behavioral variations. For example, this bird here, he does mating dances. So the male does mating dances. And they're pretty funny. You can probably look up bird mating dances on YouTube and you'll find some funny ones. So there's behavioral variations. And there is also biochemical variations here. So here's an image of a frog. So for example, like a poisonous frog, that would be an example of a biochemical variation. So this frog would be poisonous to animals that eat it, so that's a good variation for them because no one would want to eat them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about natural selection. So natural selection is a process in which organisms that have more favorable traits survive and produce more offspring. So remember these favorable traits we talked about. So the ones with favorable traits would produce more offspring because they would outlive the other ones with more unfavorable traits. And then they must produce fertile offspring.